Hello, my name is Gražina Kadžienė. I am a senior researcher at the Soil and Crop Management Department of Institute of Agriculture, Lithuania Research Center for Agriculture and Forestry. Today I will present you some results of our long-term tillage experiment with a stable crop rotation, which also includes some cover crops in order to increase soil organic matter, reduce soil compaction, and to prevent pest infestation. Low-intensity tillage is economically beneficial and minimizes soil erosion, but it is often faces with some problems such as soil compaction and high pest and especially weed pressure. A cereal-based crop rotation, which is common practice in Lithuania, increases the occurrence of some specific weeds like grass weeds, which are difficult to control in cereals due to lack of herbicides, for example, põllumeestele, and resistant problem. The same host of some pathogens also provoke a specific diseases infestation, especially when low-intensity tillage technologies are applied. Here you see a carpet of matricaria and other weeds under no tillage. These weeds have germinated in autumn after the harvest of main crop and survive during winter. Therefore, we have such high weed pressure. Even after drilling, you can see some weed plants left on the top of soil, which most probably will survive and will be necessary to control. Usually for such big weeds, we need an additional herbicide application, and if we have grass weeds like põllumeestele, there are no effective herbicides to control it at such big growth stage. Therefore, we need to reduce germination of weeds at post-harvest period, when no-till or other extensive tillage technologies are applied. This slide shows the standing water caused by soil compaction, which usually appears due to using heavy machinery when soil is wet. In conventional tillage, the compacted topsoil can be recovered by plowing, therefore this problem usually is not as big as it might appear in extensive or no-tillage technologies. The other problem which can appear with extension tillage technologies is fungal diseases. There you see a picture of Fusarium head blight. This disease is one of the most problematic fungal diseases of small grain cereals, which mainly depends on weather conditions, but is also related to previous crop and soil tillage. It is hardly expected when we have no rain during cereals flowering stage, but it can be very aggressive at favorable conditions. Fusarium head blight not only results in yield losses, but also grain contamination by mycotoxins. The main purpose of our study was to measure the effect of cover crops, white mustard and white clover, on topsoil conditions, weed pressure, and grain contamination by Fusarium fungi in different tillage technologies. The experimental design was as follows. Deep plowing is actually conventional tillage with a usual plowing depth down to 22-24 centimeters, shallow plowing of approximately 16-18 centimeter depth, shallow harrowing of 8 to 10 centimeters, a deep harrowing down to 14-16 centimeters, and no tillage technology with direct drilling performance. Crop rotation consists of 5 main crops: spring wheat, spring barley, field pea, winter wheat, and winter oilseed rape. 3 of 5 years also includes cover crop between present crop and following spring crop. A cover crop was established across the tillage treatments in 1/2 of all plots using a fertilizer sprayer. White mustard seeds were spread approximately 3 weeks before harvest of the main crop, spring wheat and spring barley, and white clover at the beginning of vegetation of a winter oilseed rape in early spring. The most important condition for such method is soil moisture, which has to be adequate for seed germination. Otherwise, crop seeds will increase soil seed bank. Both cover crops were chopped in a wool experiment before the autumn tillage. In this slide, you see two different tillage. It is direct drilling and deep harrowing with and without white mustard. As you see, there were a lot of weeds in no tillage without white mustard, and it was much less where white mustard was established. The major function of a cover crop is to prevent a new germination of weeds. Therefore, it is very important to establish it as soon as possible before or just after harvest, because some of weeds starting to germinate before the harvest if there is enough moisture. White mustard is actually growing very fast, and it can complicate the harvest. Therefore, 2-3 weeks before the harvest is optimal for its establishment by fertilizer sprayer. Let's see some results. This figure shows the weed biomass distribution under different tillage with and without white mustard. The weed samples were collected just before the autumn tillage in approximately 2 months after the cover crop establishment. You can clearly see that wheat biomass was more than 2 times lower where white mustard was grown as a cover crop. Soil physical properties were measured the next spring after the cover crop establishment in order to see its impact. This figure shows tillage and cover crops' effect on soil bulk density on the topsoil down to 10 cm. As you can see, white mustard positively affected the decrease of soil bulk density, which was significantly lower for both plowing technologies, deep harrowing, and no tillage. If we look at the bulk density for the arable layer down to 20 cm, we see the same tendencies, and there are significant decrease for both plowing treatments combined with white mustard. The same tendencies were observed on total soil porosity. White mustard significantly increased the total soil porosity at the soil surface for both plowing technologies, deep harrowing, and no tillage. For the topsoil arable layer, we also see a positive effect of white mustard, and there we have a significant increase of total soil porosity for both plowing technologies. Airfield porosity is more reflected to actual soil moisture, but we can still follow the tendencies of plant available water and soil air regime from this parameter. This figure shows that airfield porosity at the 10 cm topsoil was significantly higher under white mustard combined with shallow plowing and deep harrowing, or in other words, for both tillage technologies with similar tillage depth of approximately 16 cm. For the arable layer, we also see some tendencies to increase of airfield porosity under the effect of white mustard for all tillage technologies, and for shallow plowing, the increase was significant. Soil bulk density and soil porosity are directly related with soil compaction and are very important for normal plant development. This slide shows the effect of 3 contrast tillage and white mustard residues on soil barley grain contamination with 2 most important Fusarium fungi, Fusarium graminearum and Fusarium culmorum. As you see, in overall, white mustard resulted in lower spring barley grain contamination. But if we look at separate tillage, we see that Fusarium graminearum was significantly lower for deep plowing and direct drilling combined with the white mustard.
In 2 years after the white mustard performance, soil samples were analyzed for some agrochemical parameters. In this figure, we see that white mustard tended to increase pH value at the 10 cm of soil for all tillage treatments, and it was significantly higher for 2 most contrasting deep plowing and no-tillage technologies. Looking at the arable layer down to 20 cm, we see that white mustard tended to increase pH value for all tillage treatments, but due to high variation, there were no significant differences. Here we see that phosphorus oxide at the soil surface was significantly lower for shallow plowing and no tillage compared to conventional deep plowing and other treatments. But we also see that white mustard increased these values and resulted in significantly higher phosphorus oxide for the shallow plowing and both harrowing treatments, and tended to increase it for the deep plowing and no tillage. For the arable layer, we see some decrease of phosphorus oxide in no tillage as influenced by white mustard, but for other treatments there still is a tendency of increase this value, and for the deep harrowing, phosphorus oxide was significantly higher with white mustard than without. Shallow harrowing resulted in significantly lowest potassium at the soil surface compared to other tillage treatments, and white mustard didn't change this value, but it significantly increased potassium content for deep harrowing as well as decreased for the no tillage. Also, we see that white mustard tended to increase amount of potassium for both plowing treatment. In this figure, we see that potassium was significantly higher at the arable layer in shallow plowing with and without white mustard, and in direct drilling without white mustard compared to other treatments. White mustard tended to increase the amount of potassium for shallow plowing and deep harrowing, while it significantly decreased it for no tillage and shallow harrowing. The other cover crop we investigated in this trial was white clover, established by a fertilizer sprayer in winter oilseed rape and early spring when soil have enough moisture. From this picture, you can already see that white clover after the oilseed rape harvest was very dense, and there was no space for any weed or volunteer plants. And in the other side, without white clover, quite many weeds and volunteer oilseed rape plants appeared. What is important that white clover is perennial plant, therefore it has to be destroyed before the next crop drilling, whether by tillage or herbicide, otherwise it will block the germination of the main crop. There we have some results of wheat biomass at post-harvest period under different tillage with and without white clover. We see a huge impact of white clover, where wheat mass decreased from 6 to 18 times, depending on the tillage technology. The effect of white clover on topsoil physical properties was not as clear as from white mustard, but the tendencies were very similar. Bulk density tended to decrease at the topsoil down to 10 cm as affected by white clover in all tillage except deep harrowing. Bulk density was significantly lowest for the shallow plowing with white clover. For the arable layer down to 20 cm, white clover tended to decrease bulk density in all tillage treatments, And again, bulk density was significantly lowest for shallow plowing. The same tendencies were observed on total soil porosity. Total soil porosity at the soil surface has a tendency to increase in all treatments with white clover except deep harrowing, and it was significantly highest in shallow plowing with white clover. For the arable layer, white clover tended to increase total soil porosity for all tillage treatments, and significantly highest total soil porosity was observed in shallow plowing combined with white clover. White clover as well as tended to increase air-filled porosity at the soil surface for all tillage, and there was a significant difference for shallow plowing. While for arable layer, air-filled porosity was significantly higher for shallow plowing and for no-tillage technologies in combination with white clover. The other tillage also tended to increase air-filled porosity when combined with white clover. Spring wheat grain contamination was very low due to dry weather conditions during spring wheat flowering, but we still can clearly see that it was much lower in treatments with white clover residues. The main message I would like to share with you is that white mustard and white clover positively affect topsoil physical properties, decreasing soil compaction. It also clearly reduced weed pressure at post-harvest period in all tillage treatments. The residues of white mustard as well as white clover have influenced lower grain contamination by Fusarium fungi. Our results suggest that white mustard and white clover as the cover crops might be an option for suppression of weeds and Fusarium fungi, as well as for topsoil loosening. More detailed results about cover crops' impact on weed pressure and Fusarium infestation under different tillage technologies you can also read in one of our latest publications in Crop Protection Journal. This is all I wanted to present you today. Thank you for your attention.